Tennessee's got a lot of questions to answer this spring, and 5 of these newcomers, some transfers, some true freshmen, they have got to ball out over the next month. Who are they? And what will it mean for Tennessee if they have big springs? That and more at your Wednesday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome into it, your Wednesday morning edition of Locked On Vols. I'm Eric Cain. Everydayers, appreciate you for being here. If you're new to the show, thank you so much. Pull up a chair. Hope you enjoy the content. Tell your friends. We're at it every single weekday morning when you wake up. Got a fun show coming up here today. Ward Wednesday, Josh Ward, radio host at 99.1 The Sports Animal. Going to join us in segment 3, talking a whole lot of Tennessee basketball and the potential of a number 1 seed. That's coming up in segment number 3. I've been asked about it a lot over the last couple of days. The NFL Draft Combine is over with, and of course there were some reports even before that. Does James Pearce have some character issues, and is this the reason his stock is sliding? I'm going to touch on that in segment number 2, but first, we continue to preview and discuss some spring football practice notes and observations and all that. Well, observations will be later. But today we're going to talk about some newcomers that really need to ball out this spring. They've got to have a big spring for Tennessee to be on its way to being where they want to be next fall. Number 5, and this isn't necessarily in reverse, or this isn't necessarily in order of importance, but I am going to save the best one for last, and you guys could probably already decide who that one's going to be. But number 5 on my list is Travis Smith, wide receiver, former four-star, top 200 player. Really, really talented player. Several SEC schools coveted him, and he's going to walk into a wide receiver room that lost seven guys from the year before. Okay, you've got the leader in the clubhouse. Essentially, is a sophomore that's only a year older than you. You have a third-year player in Chris Brazzell, second year with the system, that really underperformed a season ago. You have Braylon Staley in the slot that played towards the end of the season, got some valuable experience, but doesn't have a whole lot of experience overall. Amari Jefferson's coming in, but I do think he's going to be limited to begin spring practice, the transfer from Alabama that redshirted this past season. Joakim Dotson, who's also a freshman in this class, isn't even here. He'll be here in the summer, not an early enrollee. Radarius Jackson, who I think the staff really, really likes and was kind of one of those hidden gems in the 26 class in terms of on 300. He's going to be here, and I could very easily talk about him right now in this segment. But I think Travis Smith has the highest upside. Again, a highly ranked 4-star prospect, a guy that Tennessee wanted big time, got. Auburn wouldn't go away. Georgia was very interested there. One of these freshmen are absolutely going to have to step up and give Tennessee a whole lot of snaps next year. And sure, maybe spring practice will determine how active Tennessee is in the spring transfer portal window. I do think Tennessee's going to be active. I'm not talking 4 or 5 guys, but maybe 2, 3, more active than it has been in years past in the spring window, because at the end of the day, you need a body at wide receiver. You need a body at corner. I'm intrigued to see what that looks like, but Travis Smith needs to step up and give Tennessee a whole lot of good vibes this spring, and that'll start on Thursday. Number 4, I'm making it my own. One of the freshman cornerbacks. We're talking about that transfer portal window, right? With the injury to Jahmai Mashack, the uncertainty with Ricky Gibson, who it feels like he's going to be out there and be practicing for Tennessee in spring. That's the first guy I'm going to be looking for. But there's a whole lot of uncertainty there when he told On3 last week that he would plan on entering the transfer portal. Obviously, it's a business. If you never knew it was a business before now, certainly you should. You need some depth at the cornerback position in a monster way. Caleb Beasley is a guy I'm probably going to highlight tomorrow when I talk about returners who need to have a big spring. But, Caleb Beasley's that position, Marcus Gorey. But, this freshman class that brought in 5 DBs that have so much versatility to their games. Like, I think Tim Merritt's a safety, but guys like Trey Poteet, Tyler Redmond, Dylan Lewis, I think all those guys are corners, and maybe some of those guys could back up Boo Carter at the star position. I don't know which one that's going to be completely honest with you. This is a secondary class that, in terms of star power, nothing to write home about, but so many of these guys were early commits in the class that this coaching staff really, really valued and liked, and that's why they took them early. Kind of like, with some of the guys in the 2026 class. C.J. Edwards, the one that committed to Tennessee a couple weeks ago, Star rating's not important there. It's the fact that Rodney Gardner wanted him in February of the signing period, right? So who's it going to be? Trey Petite, Tyler Redmond, Dylan Lewis? I don't know. Somebody's going to have to step up, and I'm going to be watching that freshman class specifically at corner to see who steps up because Tennessee needs some depth there in a major way. Again, making it my own, I'll get back to singular players here in a moment, but let's go up front of the defensive line. Marion Dye and Isaiah Campbell. One of those guys has got to step up. I think Isaiah Campbell has the potential to play some defensive tackle for Tennessee this year. Tennessee needs some defensive tackles. You lost Amari Thomas. You lost Omar Norman-Lott. You lost Elijah Simmons. You said to bring back Bryson Eason, which is great. Jackson Moy, which is great. Davin Hobbs, which is fantastic. But after those three, you don't really know what you have. Nathan Robinson's a guy that's probably going to play. Where's Jamal Wallace, the former junior college prospect? In steps in potentially Isaiah Campbell, who was a massive get for Tennessee, newly minted 5-star towards the end of the cycle for the 2024 class, or 2025 class. And he can play on the outside, he can play on the inside, there's some versatility there, but there is opportunity in the interior right now. So I think Isaiah Campbell is a guy that can really take advantage of that opportunity and play significant snaps for Tennessee in 25, but it starts right now in spring practice. Well, it starts on Friday when spring practice begins. Marion Dye's a similar situation. Think he's more of an edge, strong side defensive end, kind of that Tyler Barron / Dominic Bailey / Tyree West. But it's kind of crowded there right now with Bailey, with West, with Weathersby, with Gentle, with a number of those guys. So why not, for now, if it's a quicker path to the field, slide inside? I think Marion Dye can be, certainly in pass rushing situations, can be a guy that's utilized in that role. So one of these freshman defensive linemen who I love this defensive line class for Tennessee that it signed, Isaiah Campbell leading the charge there. Isaiah Campbell or Marion Dye, one of you guys got to step up and help a defensive tackle, and that starts this spring. Number 2 on my list is Sam Pendleton, mainly because Tennessee got 2 transfer offensive linemen from the portal in December. Wendell Moy is gonna start, probably at guard, okay? He's going to start. That's kind of set in stone. He's got to go out there and earn it, and I understand all that, but you brought him in here to start. Sam Pendleton's going to start as well, but where will he start? He has experience in practice, not in the games, but in practice at both guard and at center while with the Fighting Irish, okay? He started the first half of the season or whatever until Notre Dame got fully healthy at one of the guard spots. He spent the last 7 games and through the playoff run backing up those guard spots. But he does have experience, at least in practice, at snapping the football. Will Tennessee elect to put him at center day 1 to see where he is there? Will Tennessee give run to William Satterwhite to see if he can prove that he can snap the football day 1, having Pendleton play more guard, and then make a move? I don't know. I'm intrigued to know where Sam Pendleton lines up day 1 for Tennessee football. Is it guard or is it center? Versatility is great, but when we're trying to figure out who fits where on this offensive line, I think Pendleton is a huge variable in that mix. So that's why he's on my list here. And then the last one that I'm going to speak of, and I'm sure you guys probably knew I was going to, mention this at some point, this fella, David Sanders. I hate, anointing a true freshman starting from day 1. And is he probably ready right now to start from day 1? Maybe not. But is he one of your best options to start from day 1 despite being a true freshman at 18 years old? Probably. Now, I think his body will certainly benefit from being in a collegiate strength and conditioning program, being in a diet plan and all that and more, a nutritional plan. He's got to put on some mass. He's got to get stronger. And all that takes time. It's not going to be a finished product for David Sanders game 1 against Syracuse. However, with the resources and the investment that you've made in David Sanders and where you are in the climate of college football 2025, you're going to have to play him, and you're going to have to play him early. And so that's why I think David Sanders, and he's good. I'm not trying to say he's not good. It's just he's young. That's why it is so incredibly difficult to come in as a true freshman and start on the offensive line. Of all the positions, the offensive line, because again, your body just has to put on mass. But David Sanders is going to get a whole lot of run. I expect him to be Tennessee's day 1 starter at right tackle, but you got to prove it here in spring. So David Sanders, number 1 on my list for sure. 5 newcomers, albeit freshmen or transfers, that have got to absolutely ball out. David Sanders, Sam Pendleton, one of the freshman defensive linemen of Isaiah Campbell or Marion Dye, one of the freshman cornerbacks, Trey Poteet, Tyler Redmond, Dylan Lewis, and Travis Smith, the wide receiver. Those guys have got to give Tennessee a lot here in spring practice. And again, it all starts on Friday. Tomorrow's show, returners, 5 returners that have got to have big springs for Tennessee to be where it wants to be in 2025 next fall. That and more is coming up tomorrow's show. But next, James Pearce. What's going on there in the NFL draft, sliding in the mock drafts? All that and more coming up next right here on Locked On Vols. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info that help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service so that you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn to take advantage. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Again, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That is SH5 for 5% off your first order. All that and more is at supplyhouse.com. Does James Pearce have bad character? Is his character report the reason he's sliding in mock drafts? I mean, again, we thought that last summer when Pro Football Focus was just all over James Pearce and claiming him as, the number 1 overall draft pick and all that and more. I was going to play it because good pub, right? For the site and for the pod and all that and more. But at the end of the day, it was kind of like, let's wait and see if he can do what he did as a junior, as a senior. Stats didn't necessarily back up his junior season, but it's not like his stats were bad. 7.5 sacks. One of the nation leaders in pressures. He did not have a bad season, but in terms of TFLs, sacks, all that and more, the numbers were a little bit down. But we're hearing so many reports coming out and so many people, like me on podcasts or radio shows or whatever, especially reeling from the NFL Combine, that James Pearce has got some serious character issues. And a lot of you guys have been asking kind of what my take is and all that. And I'll tell you here in just a moment. I want to read something that was sent to me. I've seen many of these, okay? So I'm just reading one specifically from Corey Cain at the NFL Combine saying that James Pearce had the worst character report of any player in this year's class. Quote, I was told the Tennessee football program could not only breathe easier once Pearce left campus, but that his pitch count in SEC play was not injury-related. Pearce was seen as undeniably uncoachable and as a player with 1 foot out the door already this season, giving his coaches little incentive to put him on the field full time. I was told by one scout that James Pearce Jr. is seen as the player with worst character report of any player in the draft. Another scout told me they think the environment and the people around him in Tennessee are the main issues, and they think that he could become a pro when he enters the NFL building. NFL personnel won't be shocked to see him on the board after the first 64 picks in the draft. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there from that specific article. And again, there's several like it. Ain't no way in hell James Pearce is going to be on the draft. It's going to be one of the best available after 64 picks in the NFL draft. That is the first 2 rounds. Okay, I have a new house. I'm willing to bet this. No, I'm not going to do that. It's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. All right, got a kid on the way. Got to have a roof over the head. It's not going to happen. James Pearce Jr. will 100,000% be picked in the first 2 rounds, okay? So that part, complete BS in my opinion. Number 2, and I've seen several different things like this about the snap count and all that type of stuff. What are we talking about here? If anybody watches Tennessee football and studies Tennessee football, especially in this pre-draft process when you're trying to do your homework on a player you're potentially going to take, you know that Rodney Gardner plays 12 to 14 guys. You know that it is a rev share type. It's a split share up front, right? It's like rev share we're talking about right now coming to college athletics. It's split share up front. That goes for James Pearce. That goes for David Hobbs. It goes for anybody on the defensive line. But also, I went to Pro Football Focus and pulled up the snap counts. James Pearce Jr. had the 6th most defensive snaps played in 2024. The 5 in front of him, none were defensive linemen. Okay, Jermon McCoy led all players with 696 snaps. Ricky Gibson, 636 snaps. So those two were cornerbacks. Arian Carter, your starting middle linebacker, back half of the year once Keenan Peely was injured and gone for the season. But even before that, he was a starting linebacker, 611 snaps. Will Brooks, who they rotated at safety, but a lot of times they kept him on the field, 588 snaps. Andre Turrentine, his counterpart at the safety position, 545 snaps. And then there's James Pearce with 464 snaps. The most of any Tennessee defensive lineman. The next closest defensive lineman in terms of snap count in 2024 was Dominic Bailey at 416, and then Joshua Josephs at 365. Okay, anybody wondering, Bryce Neeson, 362, Amari Thomas, 321, and then after that on the defensive line, it was actually Jackson Moy at 246. My point is, you play 12 to 14 guys on the defensive front, and that's just how Rodney Garner does it. So James Pearce Jr. led all Tennessee defensive linemen in snaps played this year. There was no snap count. There was no, he's uncoachable, I don't want to put him out there. Like, what are you talking about? That makes absolutely no sense. So when I see reports like that, that infuriates me, because all you have to do is go do your homework. It's called show prep. It's called actual draft prep. That makes absolutely no sense. As far as the character issues, okay? Now, it is well known James Pearce Jr. does not like talking to the media. He didn't hardly at all throughout his time at Tennessee. He spoke after the Citrus Bowl. He, Nico, and Josh Heupel up there, and at the podium at a table together. I want to say he talked after 1 or 2 of the games this year, but typically he was not one of the guys that Tennessee sent on Tuesdays and Wednesdays or Mondays and Tuesdays to speak with the media. He just kind of never was that. You know who else wasn't one of those guys? Darnell Wright. And Darnell Wright went number 10 overall a couple years ago. Darnell Wright's a really, really good kid. Has nothing to do if you're a bad kid or have character issues. You just don't want to talk, and that's that's fine, especially now in the player empowerment era and then the NIL era for sure. There was one report, back in, I think it was December of 2023, where he was arrested. He was transferred to this is an ESPN article from Chris Lowe, and I remember this was happening. I was actually tipped off the morning that this was going down by somebody and kind of following that story that day. But he was arrested, transported to Knox County Detention Facility, charged with speeding, driving on a suspended license, failure to present insurance registration, not properly displaying, and improper window tinting. Essentially what happened was he was pulled over for going like 60 and a 40 or something, and he was disobeying orders from police. He wasn't resisting arrest. There wasn't an altercation. He just disobeyed orders from police per the Knoxville Police Department incident report. So was that James Pearce Jr.'s finest moment? No. And I'm sure he'd tell you that. And I'm not trying to say here that his record is spotless and it's completely clean, because this is on here, but this is the only thing that was on here. And sure, it is something, and I'm not trying to act like it's not, but this is it. This is the only thing on his record. And he did not get in a fight with police. He did not spend nights and nights in jail. He disobeyed orders from police, was detained for a little bit, and then he was on his way. That's just kind of what it was, and it was a routine traffic stop after he was cited going like 60 and a 40. So that's the only thing on his record right now. I think that at times he was a challenge to manage, but so many players are a challenge to manage. In that same breath, I think James Pearce Jr. grew up an awful lot while he was here at Tennessee. Grew up from his freshman year to his junior year. He still has some growing up to do, just like we all do. But I think he also grew up a little bit, at least from my experiences and people that I've spoken with, and being around Pearce a little bit the last couple of years. I think he's grown up a little bit and kind of transformed into a man like we all do at that age. But certainly he was a headache at times. Certainly he was a challenge at times. You know who else was? Juwan Jennings, who everybody loves. Everybody loves, and you should. I love Juwan Jennings. I think he's awesome. But he was 100% a challenge at times. So were so many other players that have played here at Tennessee. Okay, and so many players have played here at Tennessee that fans have no clue about, and sometimes I have no clue about. So it's just kind of part of it. So I think a lot of these reports, kind of bringing this all together, are a little unfair. I think that it's lazy. I think it's a lack of research, and I think you're just looking for a reason to quantify why he's sliding down the NFL mock drafts. Why is he sliding down the NFL mock drafts? I don't know. I mean, I still think he'll be picked in the first round, but the latest mock drafts this week kind of have him right on that edge at 28 to 32. We'll see. But and the way he ran at the NFL Combine, I thought he spoke pretty well. He went around and spoke and talked with a lot of NFL personalities and a lot of GMs and coaches, and that was really, really good for him because, again, he hasn't been in front of the media an awful lot. I just think a lot of it is these reports are laziness, lack of research, and the fact that James Pearce Jr. just didn't talk an awful lot to the media, and I think that's okay. So long-winded, all that to be short. I think a lot of this is overblown, but at the end of the day, we'll see. We'll see, and we'll see where James Pearce Jr. ends up in the NFL draft. So that's my 2 cents. All you guys are wanting to know, there it is. When we come back, Josh Ward, Tennessee basketball, could it be a number 1 overall seed? That's coming up next. We continue here with the Wednesday Locked On Vols. Josh Ward, a lot of momentum right now for Tennessee basketball. Your number 1 seed in ESPN's bracketology. Jahmai Mashack, game-winning buzzer beater to beat Alabama. What do you take away from that win for Tennessee over Alabama on a day where Tennessee didn't play its best basketball?
It was a tremendous win, tremendous moment for Tennessee to win the game in that fashion with Jahmai Mashack hitting that shot. The story, all the point-of-view videos that Tennessee has been able to share and fans have shared since then. It was huge. Then you go to the stakes, the chance to become a number 1 seed. There is still work to be done and maybe some help. But I think if Tennessee takes care of its business, it's a number 1 seed. So turning around and getting ready for Ole Miss is a big deal here because of what Tennessee was able to accomplish. And I know the sport is so focused on what happens in March. It's a tournament sport. We all are aware of that. But, Eric, I try to remind folks every once in a while, hey, enjoy those games in the regular season that in the moment you care about so much. And that is a shot that I think we will talk about for a long time. I'm not saying Jahmai Mashack is Chris Lofton, but we talk about that Lofton shot over Kevin Durant all the time because of the moment that it was. And I think we can do that with the Jahmai Mashack shot. And if Tennessee gets bounced early in the NCAA tournament, be disappointed then. But forever remember that feeling, how excited you were as a Tennessee fan watching Jahmai Mashack hit a game winner against Alabama.
I think it's hilarious. Zakai Ziegler trying to call timeout, Rick Barnes trying to call timeout, getting mad because, 1, he's not granted a timeout, and maybe 2, because Jahmai Mashack's taking the shot. I think it's more because he wasn't granted the timeout. Zakai Ziegler has no clue what's going on because he wasn't watching. Some of the best things in sports happen when other things aren't granted. We see this all the time in football when you're trying to ice a kicker, get a late timeout, and they don't get it. They don't get the timeout called. You kick it and win, or the dude kicks it and drills a 57-yard field goal, and they do call the timeout. I mean, it's just it's one of those things. But I thought it was hilarious seeing all the different POV videos of Barnes trying to call the timeouts, the guy not even watching, and then of course the place erupting.
Yeah, sports are so funny. We never know. Sometimes we have a pretty good idea, but we never know what's going to happen. I thought in that final minute, Igor with his foul probably wasn't supposed to happen because there was still enough time between the game clock and shot clock to just allow it to play out. But what if they had done that? Alabama might have scored to go up 5 or 6, and at that point, it's probably over. So instead, Bama goes 1 of 1. When the 1.2 seconds remaining was added after the tie-up, which, by the way, I thought you can make a strong case was a steal by Tennessee. But if that happens, Tennessee probably doesn't get a great look at a shot, depending on how things play out. Wouldn't have had as much time. But anyway, the time being added ends up helping Tennessee because of the 5-second violation. We can go on and on with what we think is going to happen, the assumptions we make, assuming, hey, without Igor and Zakai against Florida, Tennessee just doesn't have enough. But Jordan Gainey steps up, and Jahmai and everybody that played in that game had to step up. And maybe that's helping this team as the season has gone along. What I do know is Tennessee has put together one of the best regular seasons in school history. 5 weeks as the number 1 team in the country. Again, projected right now, we'll see how it plays out as a number 1 seed, at worst a number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, and a chance to go as far in the NCAA tournament as Tennessee's ever gone.
We talk about Zakai Ziegler all the time. We talk about Cheslinier all the time. A guy that you and I don't speak about often is Jahmai Mashack, who, of course, had the game winner against Alabama that we've been speaking on. A guy that just kind of does everything for your team. He's a great defender, super versatile, can guard 1 through 5 on the court. When Tennessee goes small, he plays the 4, and they don't miss a beat. Offensively, he's not super aggressive. That's not his game, but whenever he's open and he takes a shot, typically it goes in. I mean, he's a guy that can knock down an open look. But for a guy that's gotten a lot of unwarranted criticism from fans at points in times, how sweet is it that Jahmai Mashack had this moment, especially now senior year and everything he's meant and done for the program the past 4 years?
Jahmai Mashack deserves it. He's put in the work to be a better basketball player, to continue to improve over his 4 years at Tennessee. He has become one of the best defenders in all of college basketball. We can make a strong case that he is the best defensive player in college basketball. Jahmai has made that case. And then on the offensive end, to hit that kind of shot, to have that moment, to deliver all that we're talking about and what it can mean for Tennessee, nobody deserves it more than Jahmai Mashack. He's made a tremendous impact on the court as well as off the court. That is part of the story of what Jahmai has done at the University of Tennessee, coming from California, making a difference in East Tennessee. He's a really good player. And then there's the whole culture aspect of Tennessee's success over the last few years. And Jahmai has helped lead the way in that department too.
ESPN's Joe Lunardi, bracketologist, has Tennessee, entering the week as a number 1 seed right now currently. And if you look at kind of his latest bracketology, Tennessee would be the 1 seed in the West region, paired with number 2 Iowa, number 3 Wisconsin, and number 4 Texas A&M. Again, these are just projections. We'll see what it is in a couple weeks. But if Tennessee were to have drawn the West, but being put with Iowa, Wisconsin, and A&M in the top 4, what do you like about that little grouping?
Yeah, I think Tennessee would probably match up pretty well. They would have advantages with how well the Vols can defend. You never know, and you have to expect you're going to play somebody good in that second weekend. That's just how it's supposed to work. You either play a talented team that did well all season long and they got a high seed because of it, or a team that got hot in the first weekend and is playing good basketball in March. At the beginning of the week, when we were looking at projections, BYU did stand out. That would be a team that I think is well coached. They've been in that transition with Mark Pope going to Kentucky, and that might scare you. Not that they're the same team, but Mark Pope at Kentucky, 2 wins against Tennessee, BYU with what they're doing in basketball. But that would also be a 1-8 or 1-9 matchup. UConn was actually the other team there. But I think it would be a good draw for Tennessee and would give Tennessee a really good chance to be able to go through the West and get to the Final Four. I'll repeat, you should expect to play a good team that can beat you, really any time beyond the first round. If you're a 1 team, there's no excuse to lose. I know it's happened a couple times. But if Tennessee's in that position, Tennessee will have the advantage going in trying to get to the Final Four.
So what does Tennessee need to do to hold on to this number 1 seed over the last 2 games of the regular season? Tonight, Ole Miss, the nightcap, at home against South Carolina on Saturday, and then, of course, the SEC tournament.
Well, my first answer would be to win out. Win this midweek game against Ole Miss, and then take care of business against South Carolina. And if that happens, I think Tennessee is all but a lock. If Tennessee wins these next 2 games and wins on Friday in the SEC tournament, I think it's a wrap. I think Tennessee's a number 1 seed. If Tennessee were to lose at Ole Miss, let's see what happens in the other games. As Florida and Alabama, they have tough games, actually, what they've done in the midweek, and then let's see this weekend how it plays out. But I think Tennessee has to worry about handling its own business. It's a tough road game against Ole Miss, a 5-3 team at home in SEC play, but a beatable team at home. Somewhat similar in the profile going in to what Tennessee faced against Texas A&M. So Chris Beard's team can defend, and they know this is a huge opportunity. Hey, beat a projected number 1 seed. That can help boost the resume ahead of Selection Sunday a week and a half from now. But if Tennessee plays as well as it's capable of and wins the game, and then obviously needs to beat South Carolina at home, then I think Tennessee has almost wrapped up a number 1 seed.
All right, basketball dominating the conversation here on this edition of Award Wednesday, but out the door, I do want to get your thoughts. Hey, in case you forgot, because I certainly did until earlier this week, spring football practice begins on Friday. A lot of questions. I think this is probably the year Josh Heupel has the most questions, excluding his first spring when he just got hired. What are you going to be watching for the first couple days of spring practice as they get out there on the field on Friday morning?
Yeah, one of the reasons this is a spring with the most questions is because it's probably the first time we've really questioned what's going on with the offensive side of the football. And heading into this season, the offensive line is a question. Who will be the starters at all 5 spots? We have a pretty good idea of a few of those, but the center position's a big one going in. David Sanders Jr. coming in as a talented, highly touted true freshman. How does he look? But Eric, I think if I'm starting the conversation, I start with wide receiver. It's a limited group in terms of the amount of personnel. Mike Matthews is one of the most talented players on the team. Does he emerge in a leading role on the offense heading into his second season? What do the freshmen that are on campus look like? Somebody has to step up. The group needs to be better, and Nico needs to be better. So all of that combined, the wide receivers, the running back group without Dylan Sampson, the offensive line without Cooper Mays and Javonte Spraggins, and then again, Nico leading the way as a second-year full-time starter at Tennessee. Let's see how that group comes together. There's plenty of potential, but there's question marks all over.
And what's going on at cornerback? You've got an injury to Jamal McCoy. What's going on with Ricky Gibson? What's the depth look like back there? I know you were
is
talking
number
offense.
1 on defense on the field? That's a reasonable question to ask when you walk out there for day number 1.
Yeah, that's where my eyes are going to go immediately when I step foot on that field. All the coverage right here on Locked On Vols and, of course, on Josh and Swain. Weekdays noon to 3 on 99.1 The Sports Animal. Josh, what do you and VFL Jason Swain have coming up the rest of the week on the show?
Yeah, football. We are talking football, some post-combine discussion with the NFL draft and where some VFLs will go, but the start of spring practice, plenty of basketball, of course, with what's going on this week and ahead of the NCAA tournament. We had the sleigh ride. It was hour number 3 of Tuesday's show. So if you want to go back and podcast it, you can anywhere you get your podcast. And don't forget the newsletter. It's free once a week on Friday mornings.
Josh, as always, man, thanks so much.
Thanks, Eric.
That is Josh Ward. A little segment we like to call Ward Wednesday, every Wednesday right here on Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys for being here. Making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch each and every single day. A lot of basketball talk right now, and rightfully so. Tennessee could become the first ever number 1 seed in program history. We'll see if Tennessee, what it looks like tonight on the road, nightcap, Ole Miss, and then, of course, finishing off this weekend against South Carolina. Spring football practice starting later this week. We'll continue to preview that and talk everything else in the world of college athletics. This is Locked On Vols.